The rain poured relentlessly, drenching everything in sight. A German shepherd sat motionless outside a gas station, his fur soaked and clinging to his frail frame. His amber eyes remained fixed on the road, scanning each passing car as if expecting someone to return. He had been waiting, through the cold, the storms, and the long, lonely nights. His body shivered from the chill, but he did not move. He had nowhere else to go. Jack Reynolds leaned against the garage wall, arms crossed, his gaze locked on the dog across the street. He had seen him before, always in the same spot, always waiting. But tonight, something about it felt different. The dog's patience, his unwavering hope. It struck something deep inside Jack, something he had tried to bury. He clenched his jaw, exhaling slowly. "Still here, huh?" he muttered under his breath. The sight of the dog stirred memories Jack had long suppressed. Memories he wasn't ready to confront. He turned away, forcing himself to focus on anything else. For 3 years, the dog had been there. The locals called him Ghost, the dog who never left. Through blizzards, heat waves, and endless nights he remained, waiting for someone who never came back. His collar was worn, the engraving barely visible. It was proof that he once had a home, that he once belonged. Jack had heard the stories. He knew the truth. But knowing didn't make it easier to watch. He swallowed hard, ignoring the dull ache in his chest. Jack turned away, gripping the edge of his workbench. He had lost too much: his wife, his happiness, his ability to care. The last thing he needed was another reminder of loss. "It's just a stray," he told himself. "Not my problem." But the thought didn't sit right. The weight in his chest grew heavier with each second that passed. He clenched his fists, shaking his head. He couldn't afford to care. Not again. A loud clap of thunder shook the night. Ghost flinched but didn't run. He simply curled into himself, his body trembling, trying to find warmth where there was none. Jack's breath hitched. His fists loosened. Before he could stop himself, he was already moving. The rain pelted against him as he crossed the street, his heart pounding. He crouched down, reaching out slowly. "Come on, buddy," he murmured, his voice softer than it had been in years. "Let's get you out of here." For the first time, Ghost moved. Just a little, just enough. And Jack knew. He wasn't just saving the dog, he was saving himself. The distant sound of laughter cut through the quiet night. Jack furrowed his brows, setting down his wrench. Another sound followed, sharp, metallic. A rock striking something hollow. Then a yelp. Jack turned. Across the dimly lit gas station, a group of teenagers stood near the old dumpster, their voices mocking. Another stone flew through the air, bouncing off the rusted metal. "Go on, get lost, mutt," one boy jeered. A shadowed figure flinched against the wall. A dog, thin and trembling, its ribs faintly visible beneath its wet fur. It didn't run. It just cowered, ears pinned back, bracing for the next hit. Jack's jaw tightened. That was enough. Jack moved fast, his boots striking the pavement with force. "Hey!" His voice sliced through the air, sharper than the wind. The teens froze, startled by the sudden presence of the broad-shouldered mechanic storming toward them. Their bravado wavered. Jack didn't slow. He had that look, the one that meant trouble if they didn't back off. "Pick on someone your own damn size," he growled. They hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. Then one of them muttered, "It's just a stray," but the group was already backing away. Within seconds they were gone, their laughter fading into the night. Jack turned toward the dog. The German shepherd remained pressed against the cold metal, its breathing uneven, its eyes locked onto Jack. Not running. Not trusting, just waiting. Jack lowered himself to a crouch, hands resting on his knees. No sudden moves. "You okay, buddy?" His voice was softer now, stripped of the anger it carried moments ago. The dog didn't answer. Of course it wouldn't, but in those deep amber eyes Jack saw something. Fear, but also recognition. Like it had seen men like him before. Like it had been waiting. Jack's gaze fell to the dog's collar, barely hanging onto its frail neck. The leather was cracked, the buckle rusted. It had been worn for years. A small, round metal tag dangled at the front, its engraving faded with time. Jack squinted, rubbing his thumb over it. A name, or at least what was left of it. G-O-S. The rest was unreadable. Jack exhaled. Ghost, huh? The name felt right, like it had been waiting to be spoken again. The dog just watched him, silent, unmoving. Beside the half-faded name, a phone number was scratched into the metal, or what was left of it. The last few digits were barely visible, worn down by time and weather. Jack rubbed the tag again, as if that might bring back the missing pieces. Someone had cared once. Someone had given this dog a name. But where were they now? His eyes flickered back to the gas station lights, then to the empty road beyond. Who had this dog been waiting for all these years? Jack reached into his pocket, fingers brushing against something wrapped in wax paper. His lunch, a half-eaten sandwich he'd forgotten about. He unwrapped it carefully, tearing off a small piece. No sudden movements, no expectations. He placed it on the ground and leaned back. The dog's ears flicked, muscles tensing. Its eyes darted between Jack and the food, wary, calculating. Jack knew that look. The look of something that had been tricked before. But he didn't move. This wasn't a trick. This was a choice. Seconds stretched long. The dog didn't blink. Neither did Jack. Then, ever so slowly, it moved. A cautious paw shifted forward. A pause, a sniff. A moment of indecision. Then hunger won. The dog's muzzle dipped, and it took the food, swallowing fast, like it feared it might disappear. Jack exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders. Not trust, not yet. But a step. Ghost licked the crumbs from the pavement, then lifted his head, watching Jack. Waiting. For what? Jack wasn't sure. Jack sat back, studying the dog in the dim gas station glow. Thin. Beaten by time. But still here. Still waiting. His chest felt heavy. He didn't do this. Didn't do attachments, not anymore. But as he watched Ghost lick the last traces of food, something inside him wavered. The wind howled through the empty street. Cold, lonely, just like the dog, just like him. Jack looked toward his garage. Damn it. Jack ran a hand through his hair, sighing. All right, Ghost, just for tonight. The words felt like a lie the second they left his mouth, but he wasn't ready to admit it yet. The dog didn't move as Jack stood up, didn't run, didn't follow, just watched. Jack took a step back toward his garage. Then another. A long pause. Then finally, soft, hesitant footsteps followed him into the night. He told himself it was just one night, but they both knew better. Rocky hesitated at the threshold, his paws barely grazing the worn floorboards. The warmth of the garage should have been comforting, but he stood frozen, his body tense, eyes darting to the door as if expecting to be thrown back into the cold. Jack sighed, shutting the door gently behind him. "You can relax, buddy," he muttered, placing a folded blanket near the wall. He expected Rocky to curl up there. Instead, the dog shuffled toward the door, lying down with his back pressed against it, as if bracing himself for an escape. Jack watched, a strange pang in his chest. He had seen that look before, in himself. The way Rocky kept one paw stretched out, as if preparing to bolt at any second. "All right," Jack murmured. "Stay as long as you want." And with that, he turned off the light, leaving Rocky to his own choice. The night was silent except for the soft hum of the old heater. Jack stirred in his sleep, something pulling him from his usual restless dreams. A presence. He cracked one eye open. There, just inches from his bed, Rocky lay curled up, his head resting on his paws. Jack barely breathed, afraid to startle him. The dog's eyes flickered open for a brief second before closing again, his body finally at ease. Jack stared at him, a slow realization creeping in. Rocky had chosen to be here. Not by the door, not near an escape, but beside him. Jack exhaled, letting his hand rest over the edge of the bed, close enough, but not touching. A small, silent offering. For the first time in a long time, he fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. A sudden clang from outside sent Rocky scrambling to his feet. His entire body went rigid, ears perked, tail stiff. Jack barely had time to react before the dog bolted behind the workbench, panting heavily. "Hey, it's okay," Jack said gently, lowering himself to Rocky's level. The dog's chest rose and fell in rapid bursts, his eyes wild, darting between Jack and the door. He wasn't just startled, he was terrified. Jack sat back, watching as Rocky's trembling subsided into wary stillness. He had seen that kind of fear before, the kind that came from experience, not instinct. Jack sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. He had invited Rocky in, but the ghosts of his past had come with him, and if Jack knew anything, it was that ghosts didn't let go so easily. Jack never wanted attachments. They hurt, they left. He had lived by that rule for years, keeping people and animals at arm's length. And yet, here he was, watching Rocky from across the room, wondering why he cared so much about a dog who still wouldn't let him get close. Every time Jack reached out, Rocky flinched. Every time Jack moved too fast, the dog's eyes darkened with an unspoken memory. Jack clenched his fists. He wasn't good at this. He wasn't patient. But looking at Rocky, at the way he wanted to trust but didn't know how, Jack saw himself. "Guess we're both a little messed up, huh?" Jack muttered, tossing a small piece of jerky across the room. Rocky eyed him warily but inched forward, sniffing before taking the offering. It was slow, painfully slow. But for the first time, Jack felt like maybe, just maybe, they were figuring it out together. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Rocky had a story, one he couldn't tell. The worn collar, the flinches, the way he never fully relaxed. Someone had loved him once. Someone had left him. Jack didn't do it out of curiosity, but something about Rocky made him restless. He needed to know. So, the next morning, he loaded Rocky into his truck. The dog sat stiffly in the passenger seat, his eyes flicking toward the window. Jack wasn't sure if Rocky expected freedom or something worse. The vet's office smelled like antiseptic and quiet regret. Jack kept a hand on Rocky's back, feeling the tension coiled beneath his fur. "Let's see if we can get some answers," Jack murmured as the vet approached. He had no idea what he was expecting. Maybe nothing, maybe closure. But when the vet scanned Rocky's neck and the screen flashed a name, one Jack hadn't heard in years, his breath caught in his throat. Jack's pulse pounded as he stared at the screen. Owner, Daniel Hayes. Jack's fingers curled. That name. That name. The vet glanced at him. "Do you know him?" Jack's mouth was dry. He hadn't heard Daniel's name in over a decade. His best friend. His former best friend. The one who had vanished after an accident neither of them had spoken about since. He looked at Rocky, the dog staring up at him as if waiting for something. Jack swallowed hard. "Yeah," he finally said. "I knew him." Rocky had been Daniel's dog, a ghost from a past Jack had buried, and now fate had put them back in the same room. Jack sat frozen as the vet removed the scanner, the name glowing on the screen like a ghost from the past. "Rocky belonged to the Parkers," the vet said, her voice cautious. "They lost him 3 years ago, a highway accident. He was thrown from the car. They searched, but—" Jack barely heard the rest. 3 years? The thought sent a chill through him. Rocky, the dog who had found his way into Jack's home, his heart, had belonged to someone else all along. He glanced at Rocky, who lay on the floor, unaware of the weight of the moment. He had suffered, survived. He had built a new life. Jack's hands clenched into fists. What did this mean? Could he even think about giving him back? But then came the real blow. The Parkers. They never stopped missing him. The vet's words settled over Jack like a heavy weight. The Parkers moved out of state a while back. They never thought they'd see him again. Moved? Jack's chest tightened. This wasn't a simple reunion. If he reached out, Rocky would be gone. Not to a house down the street, not to a place Jack could visit. Gone. Jack looked at Rocky, who nudged his knee, sensing the shift in his mood. "You belong to someone else, buddy," Jack whispered, scratching behind the dog's ear. Rocky leaned into his touch, trusting, comfortable. Here, the choice pressed against him like a vice. He had spent months with this dog, watching him heal, watching himself heal. But what if keeping him was selfish? What if Rocky's real family still needed him? Could Jack do what was right, even if it tore him apart? Jack sat on the couch, his phone screen glowing in the dim light. The vet had sent over an old video from the Parkers, Rocky before the accident. The video played, a boy's laughter, a woman's voice calling a name Jack had never spoken before. "Max, come on, boy." Jack's breath caught. Rocky, Max, perked up. His ears twitched, his body tensed. The video continued. A younger, carefree version of the dog bounded across a yard, tail wagging furiously. His family, his past. Rocky let out a quiet whine, his eyes locked on the screen. Recognition flickered in them, but something else too. Hesitation. Jack's throat tightened. He remembers. But remembering wasn't the same as wanting to go back. Jack reached for Rocky, fingers brushing through his fur. "What do you want, buddy?" Rocky didn't move. He just watched, caught between two worlds. And Jack? Jack was no closer to knowing what to do. Jack had always believed decisions were black and white. You did what was right. End of story. But staring at Rocky, his heart told him differently. If he kept him, he was stealing someone else's family. But if he let him go, he was ripping apart his own. Rocky lay with his head on Jack's lap, breathing steadily, as if the weight of this decision wasn't pressing down on both of them. Jack's fingers curled into Rocky's fur. "You belong to them, but you belong here too." Jack grabbed his phone, his hand shaking. He typed the message. "I found your dog." His thumb hovered over send. Rocky let out a slow exhale, pressing closer, trusting. Jack's chest ached. With one deep breath, he tapped the screen. The message was sent. A moment later, a reply. "Oh my God, please, tell us he's okay." Jack closed his eyes. It was done. The day arrived too soon. Jack stood by his truck, Rocky's leash in his hand, his heart in his throat. The Parkers would be here soon. Jack had spoken to them on the phone, heard the mother's sobs, the father's stunned silence, the boy's breathless excitement. They were coming. Rocky sat by his side, ears perked, sensing something different. Jack knelt, gripping both sides of Rocky's face, pressing his forehead against the dog's. "You're gonna be okay, boy." His voice broke. "You were always theirs." Rocky licked Jack's chin, tail wagging softly, but there was hesitation in his eyes. Jack pulled back as a car pulled into the driveway. A woman stepped out, tears already falling. A man followed. And then, the boy. "Max?" Rocky stiffened. Then, in a heartbeat, he was running. Jack felt his chest crack open. This was goodbye, but it had never been about him. Jack tightened his grip on the leash as they pulled into the quiet rest stop. His heart pounded. This was it. Rocky, sitting in the passenger seat, lifted his head, ears twitching. A family stood a few feet away, Mark and Linda Parker, their teenage son beside them. The moment Linda gasped, Rocky tensed. His body stiffened, his tail giving a hesitant wag. Then another. His eyes darted between Jack and the Parkers, confusion flickering in their depths. "Rocky?" Linda whispered, taking a step forward. The dog's breath hitched. His tail wagged faster now, his paws shifting like he wanted to move but wasn't sure where. Jack swallowed the lump in his throat. This was the moment Rocky had to choose. But as the dog hesitated, torn between past and present, Jack realized he wasn't sure he was ready to say goodbye. For a long moment, Rocky didn't move. Then, before making his decision, he turned toward Jack. Their eyes met. Jack could see the uncertainty, the flicker of fear. An unspoken question passed between them. "Is this really where I belong?" Jack exhaled, forcing a smile. He knelt down, rubbing behind Rocky's ear just like he always did. "It's okay, bud," he murmured. "If this is what you want, I'll be okay." Rocky leaned into Jack's touch, eyes searching his face. His tail slowed. The Parkers stood a few feet away, watching, waiting. But Jack knew this wasn't just about a lost dog returning home. This was about who Rocky had become in the time they'd been apart. Linda knelt down, her voice trembling. "Rocky, do you remember us?" Rocky took a hesitant step forward. The Parker's son crouched, holding out an old chew toy. "You used to love this boy." The dog sniffed it, ears twitching. Something in him recognized these people, their voices, their scent. But something else held him back. Mark Parker looked at Jack. "He's different." Jack nodded, his throat tightening. He's been through a lot. Rocky had once been their beloved pet, but now he was more than that. He was Jack's shadow, his hiking partner, his silent confidant. He wasn't the same dog that had been lost 3 years ago, and the Parkers could see it too. Rocky glanced back at Jack, his eyes full of something that hadn't been there before. Belonging. Linda looked at her husband, then at Jack. A silent understanding passed between them. "We thought we lost him forever," Mark said, voice thick with emotion. "And maybe, in a way, we did." Jack braced himself. He'd expected them to take Rocky back, to thank him for taking care of him and drive away. But then Linda smiled softly. "If Rocky wants to stay with you, we won't stand in the way." Jack blinked. "You mean, you love him," Linda said simply. "And he loves you. We can see that." Jack looked down at Rocky, his breath unsteady. The dog watched him, waiting. It wasn't just the Parkers' choice, it was Rocky's. Jack swallowed hard. "Rocky," he said softly, "it's up to you." Rocky's tail thumped. He turned to the Parkers, then back to Jack. Then he took a step, and another, but not toward the past. Toward Jack. Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He crouched as Rocky bounded into his arms, tail wagging furiously. The Parkers smiled, bittersweet but understanding. Mark patted Jack's shoulder. "Take care of him." Jack nodded. I will." As he and Rocky climbed into the truck, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting everything in warm gold. Jack reached over, scratching behind Rocky's ear. "Let's go home, buddy." Rocky curled up in the seat beside him, eyes bright with something Jack knew all too well. Love. Not as a man and stray, but as a family. Jack sat on the porch, the night air crisp and still. He ran his fingers through Rocky's fur, the warmth beneath his palm grounding him in a way he hadn't felt in years. It struck him then, how they had both been lost in their own ways, searching for something they didn't even realize they needed. Fate had a strange way of bringing souls together, and as he looked into Rocky's knowing eyes, he understood. Some bonds weren't formed by chance. They were simply meant to be. Jack had spent most of his life believing family was something you were born into, but Rocky had changed that. It wasn't about blood. It was about loyalty, about choosing to stay. The Parkers had loved Rocky, but in the end, they had recognized what Jack had only just begun to accept. Love wasn't about where you started. It was about who stood beside you when it mattered most. And Rocky had chosen him. For years, Jack had lived in solitude, keeping the world at a distance. But Rocky had broken down those walls piece by piece, with every wag of his tail and every moment of silent companionship. He had taught Jack what it meant to trust again, to care without fear of loss. Their journey had changed them both, shaping them into something stronger. Jack wasn't just surviving anymore, he was living. Rocky let out a soft sigh as he curled up beside Jack, his body rising and falling in steady rhythm. Jack leaned back, closing his eyes, the quiet hum of the night settling around them. For the first time in years, he felt something he had long thought impossible. Peace. He wasn't alone. He wasn't lost. He was exactly where he was meant to be. As Rocky nudged closer in his sleep, Jack smiled. They had found their way home. Together.